Welcome everybody to the CSAFOREX channel, where we are going to be talking about the Forex market, looking at the majors and gold. This is a recap with respect to what happened this week. And one thing I must tell you before I even start is that this week was a bit on the negative for me. And of course, not every week, not every month would be positive. This week, the market had a little bit of dilly-dally. We had a little bit of yo-yo here and there. And of course, it didn't give us any clear direction or any clear enough entry. This here is the Euro USD. And of course, we've been talking about the Euro USD for a while. It has been dropping. And of course, we're still expecting 1.15 to properly be hit. And this week, we got to 1.1525 area. So of course, next week should be the game changer, right? So now we had this move here, we had this drop, then we had a pullback, and of course, if you follow the zigzag patterns that I am showing you now, you'll see that this would have been a good area to jump in to sell. But when the market came back here, you'll notice that we had a little bit of struggle, and from this struggle, early London session, and this happened on Thursday, right? Early London session, you can see we had this struggle here, right? But then as it dropped, it just dropped a bit and then pulled back. So I got hit with my stop loss slightly above, right? And then it came back to this area here. And this area here happened to be another area of former support, if you look at what I'm doing clearly. And if you are this is here was resistance, and if you are new to the channel, kindly note that what we do here is strictly price action, support and resistance trading. So look at what we have right in front of us. It came back here, but the time it came back was yesterday, and of course we had the NFP yesterday, and I definitely wasn't going to look for sell opportunities here. Number one, I don't trade Fridays based on my trading journal, and of course the NFP could have gone either way. The numbers were actually bad, so of course you're expecting the dollar to be weak, and then you're expecting Euro USD to push higher, but it was also the close of the week where you would also be expecting profit taking. So Friday close, it's not always a good time for me to jump into the market. So after having my little loss here, I just observed the market, and observing the market, this is what we had, and this was what we ended with. So there was really no opportunity here on the Euro USD, and of course the Euro USD and the dollar Swiss tend to be more or less brothers and sisters, or cousins as you may call them. And if you look at what we have here, following the zigzag pattern. Now as I'm doing this zigzag pattern for you, it should be a thing of using it to understand how to draw your support and your resistance areas, and then of course look for areas of interest to enter the market, right? Remember I said I had some little losses in the market. Here is another one I had here where I jumped in here for a short, and then stop loss obviously above, but then it took me out here, right? And if you look at some other instruments like the Aussie, the Kiwi, you'll also notice that this week was more or less a thing of levels not holding, right? And of course, the dollar itself, the USD index, the greenback, was more or less a sideways market this week, right? So this is what we had also, and we had the market come back to this area here. I didn't get an entry there, so it's a bit early for me, but then you wouldn't have even gotten your final take profit. You would have managed it well enough where probably you'd have taken partial close, or you would have moved to break even, and then eventually you would have come back to take you out for break even and up, right? Looking at the other instrument that we have, don't forget this is just a quick recap looking at what happened this week. This is the Aussie didn't give off any good entry, and of course no need to fight the market. The Kiwi too, very similar, and the Kiwi was even more on ranging if you look at the overall price action for the week. Don't forget it's a weekly recap, so we're paying attention to what happened this week. We're paying attention to the price action of this week. And this is what we had over here. More or less a rangy market. This would have been very good for scalpers. If you are a scalper, probably you'd have playing the inner levels here, where you had an area here. This is where you'd have been playing in between here and also in between here as well, right? So probably you'd have been playing this band. Maybe you got an entry here to go long, and of course you'd have gotten out here, right? So of course this one too also wasn't one for me. So at the very beginning of looking at your charts, scanning through your charts, you would most likely know the instruments to pay attention to and not to pay attention to for the week. This was also one that we had sideways market here. So most likely you would have been playing the inside as a scalper, most likely. Here we had an area of support. Here support, resistance. It broke out but still acted as resistance, resistance, support, support. And if you look very well, you would have played these entries probably here or here inside this major range, right? Don't forget, there's no need to force the market. It's always good when you have a nice clean uptrend or a nice clean downtrend that gives you, that confidence that, hey, market coming back to this area of support is what I want to do. Get my entry here and then get out once it gets to the resistance, or hold and see if it's going to break out. Don't forget, you must always have a trading plan. Not having a trading plan means that you are trading recklessly, because you must have your directional bias, you must have your area of interest where you want to enter the market, and you must also have what? You must also have your entry trigger, what you want to use in order to jump into the market. Yes, we also looked at the Loonie, the USD card as well, based on what was happening to crude oil. Crude oil has been appreciating, and of course, crude oil also made new highs this week, right? The crude oil seems to have been appreciating, and then it took a little while for the dollar card to drop, right? And then this is one that I missed out on. I would have loved a nice and clean pullback to this area here, but it didn't quite pull back here for me. And then this would have been the area to jump in here for shots, and then this probably excuse me, and then this probably would have been the best trade for the week, but it didn't quite hit here for me. I wanted it to push a bit higher to these areas of former support. We then acted as resistance here. I just needed that little extra push to hit this area here. And of course, if you are a fib trader, then most likely, let's see whether I can throw in the fibs here. If you're a fib trader, most likely you'd have been looking at from here to this area here. And then you see that it would have confluenced nicely with the 50 fib marker, and it should have been a sweet trade to take. But it didn't quite get there. And of course, we don't cry on spilled milk. More opportunities to come next week. And of course, more opportunities to come next week. All you have to do, as I'm doing now and as I'm also showing you, is to do your weekly recap. Find out how was the market, what trades did you take, what were the challenges you had, the losses you had, the winners you had, what trades didn't you take? Would you have taken them on another day? All of these things will definitely help you for the next week trading, right? Apart from using the weekend to rest, it's also an avenue for you to plan against next week. Gold, we've been talking about the gold where we said it has been stuck in a range for, this was about 5 days. If you count, this was from after the 1st of October, which was Friday. It said to range and range until we had the NFP. Yes, remember we said the NFP numbers were bad, and because numbers were bad, were negative, right, for the unemployment rate, we had this big push out, and then from the big push out, what happened? Immediately it ran back into this consolidation area. Looking at this move, and then this move, trust me, if we switch over to the daily time frame, we're going to do that now. Let's switch over to the daily time frame. This move over here is going to give us a bearish pin bar, right? Let's see. Let's switch over to the daily time frame. Daily time frame. Aha! Can you see what we're talking about? This has given us a daily pin bar, which means that most likely we might even have it drop, right? Or we might have it continue the range on that hourly time frame, or you might just have it give us a full drop. Only if this pin bar, and this pin bar looks like a nice size pin bar, you can see that the long wick is obviously lying, and that's what it means, and that means that it wants to go in the other direction. For this gold, looking at this from the weekly time frame, I want to show you something, because it has been in a wedge on a higher time frame wedge for a little while now, and this is what we've had for a little while. We've had this wedge here for a little while, so we're expecting it to break out very soon. But before it breaks out, maybe it might still give us some little ranging consolidation, and of course by the time it gets tighter and tighter, you should have a big enough breakout to the upside or to the downside. But for me, I'm expecting it to break out to the downside, because I would love to see this pin bar buyers get punished. Yes, I'd love to see this pin bar buyers get punished. That means that most likely we might have a break to the downside, because the stops are definitely here. If you're watching this and you know your stops are here, well, don't say I'm coming for you. This is just my own analysis. This is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm expecting in the market. And this is something that normally happens in the market most times. You'll see, and some traders tend to call it stop hunting or whatever, but you will see stops taken out, obviously, because we all know where your stops are. You entered here on the close of this pin bar, and then your stops are at the other side. Everybody knows that. But then you probably didn't do something when it got to these highs here. This was the 1835 area of a supply zone, and when it got here, you should have probably adjusted your stop loss. If you had reduced your stop loss, you'd have gotten hit. Hey, you'd have gotten a smaller loss, or you'd have taken partial profit, or you could have moved to break even. But you are meant to manage the trade appropriately. Yes, you are definitely meant to manage the trade appropriately. Now, looking at what we've talked about from the majors to also the gold for this week, right, as a weekly recap, it's for you to also do your own. You can watch this video again to see whether there's anything that could have helped you also to understand the market better, that would help you for next week. All that we're doing now is against the next week, and trust me, it will help you out. With the losses I had this week, the losses were minimal, and that's how trading is meant to be. Your losses, you keep them to a minimal point, and then your profits should be well maximized. With that said, thank you everybody. Don't forget to give this video a like. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button. It does help the algorithm at the end of the day. Comment in the section below with any question that you may have. Okay, thank you everybody. Do enjoy the rest of the day, and goodbye for now. Peace.